a few remote people, and excited to get the meetup started. Let's see, it is 4 minutes after, so we have still some people in the back. If you guys can maybe come to the front, have a seat. Excited about today's topic. We already know some of the feedback. Just to give everybody a report, not last week, but 2 weeks prior, we had our annual SALT conference at Grand America. I see a lot of faces that were there, and thank you for coming. It was an amazing event. We had people flying in from all over the world. We had 50 talks. One of those talks is Krister's talk, and it was awesome. People stood up and cheered at the end of Krister's talk. So to give you a little bit more insight into the SALT Conf, very technical talks from customers, from our users, talking through all the different, any different way that you could think of using SALT. We probably talked about it, and we want to bring that to the community. So you'll see over the next week and a half where we'll be announcing our most popular talk. So for those of you who came or who didn't, sign up. We're actually going to do it live. So we're asking our speakers who came to SaltConf to actually do it live in a webinar format, and just so we can keep it real. You guys can ask questions. So look for that on saltstack.com, but we're going to be doing that, and we're excited for that. So without further ado, let me introduce Krister Edwards. I know there's a lot of Adobe people in the room or on Connect. If you don't know Krister and you work at Adobe, please get to know Krister. He is the SALT master here at Adobe. He's known SALT since its inception. He knows our founder, Tom Hatch, very well. They worked together at previous engagements. And Krister was very involved with SALT from the beginning. We appreciate all that he's done for SALT from a design and coding perspective, but also what he's done here at Adobe. We had probably over 50 people at our from Adobe at SALT conference. We've trained close to 100 people here at Adobe on SALT. It's awesome to see all the cool things they're doing with Adobe. And Krister has his talk today about compliance and auditing. It hits a nerve. It hits a pain point that all of you, or if you're not involved, someone within your organization has this pain point of having to do audits, and the response is typically like, yeah, I'll do it. And then there's a manual process, and I think Krister and his solution is amazing. It's HubbleStack, and without further ado, I'll let Krister talk more about HubbleStack.
Thanks, Keith. Hi, Jack. Okay. Really excited about this presentation. I put a lot of work into the demos, and in getting we've put a lot of work into getting a good, stable beta for people to play with. So I'm going to go over what we've built and why we've built it, what the components are. Then I'll demo how it works, and I'll give you a link to go play with it yourself. So one thing to keep in mind, throughout the presentation, throughout the demo, if you have ideas like, could it do this or could it do that? I want to hear about all of that stuff. Maybe not necessarily during the questions, but like find me after, submit an issue on GitHub, do whatever. We want to have everybody's feedback and involve the community in building this. So if you have ideas to share, please share them. All right. So I want to introduce, and we previewed this at SaltConf, like Keith said. I want to introduce Hubble. This is Adobe's security and compliance auditing system that we are not formally releasing until July, but we have beta releases and we have it available for feedback previous to that. So a little bit about why we built this and what we're doing with it. I've had, well, maybe you guys have had similar experience where you have your operations guys, you probably have a security team, maybe you also have a compliance team, or maybe they're kind of intermingled. But they usually say, hey, we need to be secure, so do this. Or this is the standard we've decided on. Everybody needs to follow the standard. But it's kind of all, I didn't like the way that it worked. The workflow didn't really work well in my mind. It's all coming one direction, and the results of whatever these tools and benchmarks all go back to security and compliance, but ops is just in a position of do what you're told and magical things will happen. Like, no, I want insight into this too. So what we've tried to build with Hubble is a tool that lets compliance and security do the navigation, tell you where you need to go and what the requirements are, but let operations do the driving, let operations do the scans and actually see the feedback and see what the results are and say, oh, I need to fix this. I can do that. I've got a couple of cycles, and patch a compliance thing or address any number of things in these scans. So that's kind of what we tried to build, is a framework that will give operations, that will streamline the flow between operations and security as far as who has insight into what and where everyone can play a role kind of harmoniously with less friction. So, excuse me. I want to talk about a couple of the different components of Hubble. Hubble is designed to be very modular, and it's designed to just plug into any SALT installation. So you don't have to do a whole lot of work to get it running on your existing setup. The first piece, first I have to start with, perfect timing, Spencer's here, I can pick on him. Spencer and I, he's getting pizza right now, we have kind of a joke that the reason Docker is the most popular is because it has the prettiest logo. Think about the other container projects. They don't have a cool logo, right? Nobody wants to use them. So this slide deck is my cool logo. I found animations and stuff in PowerPoint, so just be wowed. And if you want to clap, you can clap, right? Thanks, Larry. So the first component of Hubble is called Nova. This is the auditing engine. This is a modular suite of tools that can check for different types of compliance or security-related things on your system. We have a handful of different audit modules already, and there's room for more. If you have ideas, come talk to us about this. But the auditing engine is the thing that will take like a compliance profile and scan a system and tell you where you are as far as your compliance benchmark goes. Or scan for security vulnerabilities, or audit your firewall rules, or audit your network connections, like through a netstat type of a thing. Installed whitelisted or blacklisted packages or services, file permissions and ownerships, configuration file settings. All of these types of tests are all built into this Nova component, and I'll demo a bunch of these in just a minute. The next piece is called Pulsar. This is where we do the event monitoring, and specifically the file integrity monitoring. With the current implementation of Pulsar, listens to the iNotify bus in the kernel and looks for file system events, and SALT can trigger events from those, and create almost real-time file integrity monitoring event notification. The next piece we have is Nebula. Does anybody, I didn't show this off, but I've got this on my right. I like laptop stickers and I like whatever. So Nebula is the component that we tie into a tool called OS Query. If you've heard of that, Faith open sourced it. It's a tool that essentially allows you to query your system as if it were an SQL database. So you can say, select open ports where process is, whatever, and get a report of what applications have open ports on my system, or show me all the SUID binaries, show me the shell history. You can kind of take these snapshots of what's running and what's bound to the network, and pretty much anything that you can craft into a query, you can look for it. We have pre-installed a handful of different security-related queries that you can use with this, but it's totally designed to be flexible, and you can add your own and customize them however you want. And then the fourth component is the remediation and the reporting. The reporting is a big component, of course. It would be great to get this data, but unless everybody has visibility to that data, that kind of just moved to the ball is in securities court to the ball's in ops court. We want a seamless communication and reporting across all those different groups. So operations, security, compliance. So right now, we support all of the reporters, or the returners that SALT supports. So Splunk and Slack and Kibana and Elasticsearch and all whatever. There may be some work that we're going to additionally do with the returners or custom returners, but in this regard, we want to kind of focus on the dashboards at the end. So we already have a way to get the data to Splunk, but I need a cool fancy dashboard for Splunk. So the compliance people can just, here's a dashboard, I know where I am right now. We can run these snapshots every day if we want, and it populates that dashboard, and anybody who has Splunk access can see where the compliance is across the data center or across the whole installation. So those are the four pieces we've been focusing a lot on Nova right now. Pulsar currently works. It can use, there's more data we want to get out of it and some more parsing we want to do, but it currently works fine. The OS query component works fine in Nebula. This component we haven't focused too much on yet, but again, our next step would be populated dashboards, precompiled templates for Splunk and different tools like that. Now, as we started building this, we decided we're going to need to be really granular about what compliance benchmarks and different profiles we assign to what systems. Because we might have front-end web servers that need to be a little more hardened than some back-end, like in a DMZ or something. You know, there's going to be different levels of security on different parts of systems, different roles. So we pulled in all of the targeting from, or we can leverage the targeting from SALT, which is underneath this, and target by roles and attributes and CMDB values and grains and everything SALT can do. And I'll demo this, how we can create very flexible and very granular kind of maps of what we want to target, what we want to be compliant where. We have put together customizable profiles. Right now we've been focusing on the CIS, but we have community members that are already working on the DISA-STIG. We can do ISO stuff, NIST, pretty much whatever standard there is out there. If there's technical logic in it, we can plug it into here and create a custom profile that can be applied on a system that might standardize to the DISA standard or PCI or whatever. So I'll show you some profiles, but they are very customizable. They're meant to be kind of mix and matched and take what you need here and what you need here and put it together and create, because the idea here is that everybody's setup is going to be a little bit different. I mean, we all want to be secure, right? But we have different roles. We interact with customers in different ways. We're all going to have slightly different compliance profiles. So these are designed to be really flexible. I spent the whole weekend working on this piece, but we can do CVE audits now. So now, disclaimer, as of this morning, this only works on Red Hat Enterprise, but CentOS will be the next piece that we do. But this can take an XML feed from Red Hat security advisories, ingest it, and scan a system and say, this system is vulnerable to these CVEs. You might want to fix that. This is a feature, this is something that came up at SaltConf. If you guys could do this, that would be cool. So we did this, and we're cool. So again, this only works on Red Hat right now. I'll demo it. CentOS is next, and then we'll move to like Debian and Ubuntu and SUSE. But this would also be a great place that you can contribute, right? Hey, I really need Debian support for this. Come help us. We have Debian here and there, I think. So this we're excited about. And with that, let me just show you what we built. So let me exit this here. Okay. You all see that okay? Does it need to be a little bigger? All right. Okay. Let's see what I have here.
If you guys have questions too, there's mics on this side and that side of the room. And I'm already volunteering Krista to answer all your questions.
Thanks, Keith. So you see, I have some RHEL 7 machines, some RHEL 6 machines. These are all in AWS. Also got a Windows box in there just to complicate things, mix it up. These are all, so I went to AWS, I went to the quick start, I selected a Red Hat image, I spun up the instances, and I installed Salt. I didn't do anything else to them. All I've done is installed the Salt packages, got them connected, and then I scan against them. So these are out-of-the-box AMIs from Amazon. So we can do, so we see, oops, I did this clear screen too fast. I don't really care, but someone might fix that there's no OS finger for Windows. I don't know. Who from Salt can I assign that to? Justin. I'll give it to you. We'll submit a bug for that. Okay, so all you have to do, I'm going to show installing Hubble and then using Hubble. I wanted Hubble to be very easy to just kind of dock with any Salt installation. So what we did was created kind of a custom loader that masquerades as an execution module. So we just have to copy the Hubble module into our modules directory, and then we sync this out. It's already on all my systems. Okay, great. The one other thing you have to do, if I go to the Git checkout, is copy this HubbleStack Nova folder somewhere into your state tree, usually at the root. And you're done. You can now use Hubble. Plug in an execution module and copy a directory in your state tree, ready to go. So
I wanted to note really quick, we have been working so hard on Nova in particular lately that we've started calling Nova Hubble, which is confusing because Hubble is like all the different parts. So today we're just demoing Nova. So whenever he says Hubble, just insert Nova in your brain. We're gonna figure out all the wording and lexicon.
We had to be like Salt and have a big vocabulary, or else it wouldn't be complicated and it would be easy for people. So, okay. So now that I've copied those in, I can do a Hubble sync, and this will sync all of the Nova modules and the different profiles that we've built onto our minions. So we have a bunch of CIS profiles. All the PI files are the actual audit modules, and we're going to break these up into different subdirectories so it's a little bit better organized. But a Hubble sync will make sure everything's synced out to all your boxes so you can run these audits. You can run a Hubble.load. This will try to load all of the modules and show you which ones are compatible on which systems. So for the Windows box, it ingested all the data, all the different profile data was fine, but the only loaded module was SecEdit. The other ones it says, you know, this only runs on Linux, or this needs another binary or whatever. We come up to some of these Windows machines, there's a BSD audit module that doesn't work. and the Windows one doesn't work, but everything else does. So this gives you kind of an overview of, all right, what do I have available, or what does Hubble know that is available, and what is compatible with these systems? Now, let's look at one of these profiles. Let's do REL 7. So this profile encapsulates, there's a little work to be done, but it encapsulates most of the logic that's in the CIS PDF for this distribution and this version. We've taken all of that human-readable PDF language, taken the logic out of the checks, and created these modular little profiles that encapsulate that logic. So something like this, the top-level key calls the actual, or is used by the module itself. So the grep module would handle this section, and it would make sure that these certain things are blacklisted. So if you find these settings, if you look in, wherever my mouse is, if you look in Etsy group for this pattern, if you find it, you fail this test. This is a blacklisted check. But we have blacklist and whitelist for file settings. We have package blacklist and whitelist. So what these profiles are kind of a collection of the instructions for the submodules put into a single kind of reusable piece. So when I look at this file and it has CIS REL 7 level 1 scored, if you're familiar at all with the CIS benchmarks, that's fairly obvious what that is. It's specifically for REL 7, it's the CIS benchmark, what version, what level. So we'll have other benchmarks in here like STIG, REL 7, medium, or whatever you want to come up with, whatever people contribute. But these profiles are just collections of all these submodules and their instruction set on what they're supposed to run. So now what I can do is, actually, let me stay there. I can audit all my systems, Hubble.audit, and say CIS REL 7 level 1 scored. So this is Hubble taking an argument of a specific profile to apply to the machines. You see at the bottom, it ran on the Windows machine, but there's nothing came back because we ran the Red Hat Enterprise specific profile, or the Red Hat 7 profile. If I can find the right place here, you see it didn't run on my REL 6 machines either. The profiles are specific to a distribution. So we've got that, and if we run that audit, let's pick one of these. Let's look at the output for a second. So REL 7 AWS number 5. Compliance, 45%. Not awesome. It's just out of the box AMI again. And then it shows me which tests I failed and what those tests are. Now, install AID. I don't care for that one. I don't really want to do that one. I have a better solution than AID. We're going to use the Pulsar component. So I'm going to put in a control for this check. Now, we're still working on a new structure for these customized controls. But to give you an example of, or an idea of how it works, for this AID check, I can come in here and put in a new key called control and say, we don't use AID here. Now, if I run that again, that check is going to be under a new heading, under controlled. My compliance percentage went up 1 point because I'm no longer being dinged by another check. But it says, here's your controlled checks, the control reason, and the original check number. So this was another thing that was requested when we talked about this at SaltConf. This goes towards compensating controls, right? There's certain things that you're just not going to do. You have a reason for them, or you have some other excuse of why you're not going to do the check. So we support controls now. This is not something we supported at SaltConf, so we've actually done quite a bit. Now, why don't I do...
Can I clarify just for a second?
Yeah.
Right now, that's global control, and like you mentioned before, I just wanted to give more information. We're working on a way to pull that control config out of the profiles, so you can apply them only to certain hosts. You don't want to maybe you want 8 on some of your hosts, but not other ones, so you only control it on the ones that you don't care about. So that's going to be a lot more configurable soon.
Soon, yeah. Okay, so those are the profiles that we have. The CIS ones are pretty obvious what those are. But let's look at this Red Hat Security Advisory one. So I'm going to target rel 7 and apply com Red Hat RHSA rel 7. This uses the, ooh, that's not good. %, compliant. You are vulnerable to however many things this is. That's a couple dozen at least.
Well, I just wanted to clarify on that really quick. Right now, we don't have compliance taking in the CVE stuff because it's structured incorrectly. So you're not vulnerable to every RHSA in that XML. It's just not reporting compliance correctly on those.
Isn't it?
No, because it just puts them all under failures and doesn't have any successes. Like we don't split them out by failure and success. So we can't complete that yet.
Yeah.
It's coming.
Yeah. So these are vulnerable to all of these.
Yeah, but they also passed a whole bunch.
Yes. They passed quite a few. The XML is giant. There's a number of these that they passed, but right now I'm only reporting the failed data. Because if I am not vulnerable to some CVE from 2 years ago, I don't really care. If I am vulnerable, I want to know, and I want to apply the appropriate update and clear this out. Is that going off of headers, did you say? Okay, so how does this determine from the XML feed what is vulnerable and what isn't? So underneath, this actually is using a new Salt execution module for the OpenSCAP tool. I don't know if you've ever used that before. So it uses that underneath. We provide the XML feed to that tool, and it scans, and inside the XML it has, if package version is above this, then you are vulnerable to that, and so on. So it's using another tool underneath, but it's a Salt dependency you can add that knows how to ingest the XML and run the test and spit it out. So taking this a little bit further, let's say I want to run the CVE scan, but I also want to run the CIS benchmark. You can just do a comma-separated list of whatever profiles you want to run. So here's all the CIS that I failed. Here's my failed CVE scan and my control. So again, and you might notice, failure only affects the compliance percentage as one item right now. I don't know that if you had 24 CVEs on your machine, you'd still be 45% compliant. We probably need to kind of calculate that a little bit better, but this is where it is now. So you can do, again, you can do comma-separated lists of however many profiles you want to do, but then we should just put it in a top file. Create a map of what scans you want on what systems and run it. Is that awesome? Yeah? Everybody? You like that? Okay. So, rel 7 AWS star. I'm going to say CIS rel 7. Oops. Level 1 scored. I'm going to copy those and change 6 to 7 for those systems, or 7 to 6. I also want to run the CVE scan. And, oops. And the REL 6 version here. And take that out for now. So now I can just do salt, everybody, Hubble.audit. It reads in that top file, sends the right profiles to the right hosts, and will give me a report. I'm not applying any profiles to the Windows host, so it doesn't have anything. But now I have both scans run on all my different systems. So essentially, again, the idea is you create a map. Who do you want targeted with what profiles? And since the profiles are very modular and kind of flexible, you could have a profile for your base CIS benchmark, then the CVE scan, then maybe a web server hardening benchmark, or a database server hardening benchmark, or however you want to mix and match these, put together your own profiles. It's designed to be very flexible because every use is a little bit different. So that top file kind of ties it all together. That's the idea. But let me show one more thing. Oops, that's not what I was trying to do. You ever try to type in front of like 100 people? Or you ever try to type in front of like one person? It works about the same. So this is a contribution as of last night. Thanks a lot, Charles. All you guys, Salt guys, this is Charles, so pat him on the back. I'm going to run a Hubble audit, and I'm going to give it the Windows benchmark. Now, again, this is very new. There's only 4 checks in that profile, but they work. And it's Windows, and it works. So we have basic Windows support. We're happy about that. So the same control idea works with the Windows modules. It's the same. It's not module specific. So we can scan multiple distributions. We can do different versions of those distributions and mix and match, put it all together however you like. Let me go back here, talk a little bit about roadmap, and then we'll wrap up for questions. So roadmap items. One of the top things on my list is more data. We want to pull more data out of these scans so you can do more with it, so you can report it better. So we'll be doing a little bit of work on some of the returners, probably initially the Splunk returner. That's the one we use here. So we'll be creating some Splunk dashboards and things. If anybody wants to contribute dashboards for your elk stack or whatever, we'd love to see those too. I want to pull more data and kind of standardize the CVE scans a little bit more, so you can not only show the passes but also the fails. Pull more data out. Right now it just shows the security advisory and a link to the security advisory. I want to pull in information like vulnerability, or whatever the words I'm looking for, high, medium, low, right? How important the vulnerability is. We got to add CentOS support to that real quick. That should be simple enough. I didn't have time for it before today. We also newly have a firewall plugin that works for IP tables. So if you want to audit what firewall rules you have on different Linux systems, you can do whitelists or blacklists and say, I want to make sure these rules are on my firewalls or these rules are not on my firewalls. And we can scan that. We're also working on a netstat module to show open ports. And then beyond that is just reporting, pull as much data out of this and feed it to these dashboards so that the security people and the compliance people have easy ways to generate reports, have easy insight at any time into the compliance status of the infrastructure. This, again, is really designed to move the power of, or the ability to do these scans and see all this data into operations hands, And then we can even schedule these. Put these in the SALT scheduler or put them in cron or whatever and say, I want to run a full scan every day and send it to compliance, and they have a daily snapshot of how compliant the infrastructure is just from this one scheduled job. That's the idea. So I think, oh, one last thing. If you want more info, you can go to HubbleStack.io. This is the homepage for the project. It has links to all the Git repositories. It has a link to our Slack team if you want to join that and give us feedback, collaborate with us inside of Slack. It has a link to a needs to be updated read the docs page. We're working on that too. But check out the site, give us your feedback, join Slack, submit issues, all that kind of stuff. We have a question back here. Oh, yeah.
So is there any thought about linking vulnerabilities with their resolutions? So you could say link, hey, if I run XYZ salt code, it'll fix my NTP.
Oh, yeah. That's actually a feature I didn't mention. Well, to be fair, an unimplemented feature that I didn't mention. So it's up here. It's just not down here yet. So we looked at those profiles, and they have the profile information. I can add that control key and a reason. The unimplemented feature is adding a trigger key. Say if this test fails, I want you to trigger like a salt state, which does an upgrade on that package or something. Yeah, so automatic remediation is also part of this, just not yet implemented. There's another key that's, I suppose it's documented, but it's also unimplemented, an alert key. So if this test fails, I want to get alerted about it. Like, tell me in Slack when this fails every time. These other ones I maybe auto-remediate. These others I put a control on. But yes, auto-remediation is definitely in the works. Any other questions? We got mics on both sides. Raise your hand or something if you want to. If you don't have questions, I'm going to assume you're so blown away by what we built that you just can't even. All right.
In Pulsar, you said you're using the iNotify. Are you using the beacon there? And how stable have you found the beacons to be? And then what version do you consider it stable in?
Let's try the demo for that I actually forgot to do. Let me pull up my Slack channel and let's try this. Does anyone want to sacrifice something to the demo gods? Because I didn't try this one right beforehand. Let me just try that really quick. Okay. So let's say somebody is going to touch. Somebody's going to touch a hacksaw.pl on your system. Is it okay that as a Python guy I make the evil script Perl? Is that acceptable? So if I mimic creating new files on my system, of course it didn't show up that time. Generally we see that's not good. Don't pay attention to that. Oh, did I? It's still not coming into Slack, though. I did have a demo where it would notify me of these beacon events in Slack, like right away. By default, it scans for created, modified, or deleted, but there are also other events you can look for. So the idea was when somebody creates a file, I hear about it in Slack right away. If I'm not making changes to my system, but someone else is, I want to know about it, like right now. Now there is also an option, and this leverages Salt underneath. There's an option for disable on state run. So if you're applying a state and making changes, it's not going to send you all these notifies because I know I'm changing stuff. But if notifies or if changes are happening outside of Salt, it notifies currently. And there's some more work we can do there, but yeah, we're using beacons underneath. It seems to be reliable enough. The one thing that I see as a potential bottleneck is the reactor is on the master. I want to replace that with a minion side engine. So the event happens on the minion reacts to it, the minion does, and the master is totally out of the picture. So it's all self-contained. Does that answer your question appropriately? Yeah? Anybody else? Yes, Justin.
OS finger for Windows.
You added OS finger for Windows.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you, Justin. You thought it was you, didn't you? Oh, okay. All right. Anything else? Anybody? Any thoughts, ideas? Yeah, okay. He's got a mic for you.
Does it make any changes to the minions at all, or is there anything in place to prevent it from making changes? I see that this is kind of a read-only.
Yeah, right now it's all just, I'm going to do a scan and show you what happened. I don't touch anything, I don't change anything. The only potential for changing things is if you activate a trigger, which again is not implemented but is planned. If you implement a trigger, you can have it change things. But our idea is out of the box. We don't ever change anything. Yeah. Anybody else? Okay, I guess that's it. Thanks.
Thanks everybody for coming out, and thank you, Krister.